The rain hammered against the windows of the Ashford mansion like bullets from heaven. Emma Carter pulled her worn cardigan tighter around her shoulders as she pushed the cleaning cart down the marble hallway. At 28, she had spent the last 5 years working as head housekeeper for the Ashford family, invisible to their world of wealth and power. The grandfather clock in the foyer chimed midnight. Most of the staff had gone home hours ago, but Emma preferred the night shift. The silence gave her peace, and the extra pay helped cover her mother's medical bills. She had learned to move like a ghost through these halls, her soft-soled shoes, making no sound on the polished floors. Tonight felt different, though. There was electricity in the air that had nothing to do with the storm outside. Victor Ashford had returned from his business trip to London earlier than expected, and his wife Diana seemed unusually tense. Emma had noticed the way Diana's perfectly manicured fingers trembled when she poured her evening wine. Voices in the darkness. Emma approached the master suite to collect the evening's dishes. She heard voices coming from within. She paused, her hand frozen on the ornate door handle. The voices were hushed, but urgent, and something in their tone made her blood run cold. "The insurance policy is worth $50 million, a woman's voice said. Emma recognized it immediately as Diana Ashford. "Once Victor is gone, we can finally be together without hiding." Emma's heart began to race. She should walk away. She should pretend she heard nothing. But her feet seemed rooted to the spot as a man's voice responded. "The heart medication switch will look completely natural," the man said. His voice was unfamiliar to Emma, smooth and calculating. "Victor's doctor will never suspect anything. A man his age, with his stress levels, having a heart attack in Tokyo next week. Perfectly believable." Emma pressed herself against the wall, hardly daring to breathe. Diana's laugh was cold as winter steel. "Thomas, you're brilliant. Poor Victor, working himself to death. No one will question it, especially when they see how devastated his loving wife is." The sarcasm in Diana's voice made Emma's skin crawl. The weight of knowledge, Emma crept away from the door, her mind reeling. Victor Ashford might be wealthy and powerful, but he had always treated her with kindness. He remembered her name, asked about her mother's health, and had even given her a generous bonus last Christmas when her mother's cancer treatment became expensive. Back in the servants' quarters, Emma sat on her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. The voices played over and over in her mind. Diana and this Thomas person were planning to murder Victor. They were going to poison his heart medication and make it look like a natural death. Sleep was impossible. Every time Emma closed her eyes, she saw Victor's kind face and heard Diana's cold laughter. By dawn, she had made her decision. She couldn't live with herself if she stayed silent and let an innocent man die. The confrontation finding Victor alone wasn't easy. He was always surrounded by assistants, security, or business associates. But Emma knew his habits. Every morning at 7, he took his coffee in the garden conservatory while reading the financial news. It was the one time of day when he insisted on solitude. Emma's hands shook as she knocked on the glass door of the conservatory. Victor looked up from his tablet, surprise flickering across his distinguished features. At 52, he was still. Handsome in a refined way, with silver threading through his dark hair and intelligent brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Emma, is everything all right?" His voice carried genuine concern. Taking a deep breath, Emma stepped into the sunlit room filled with exotic plants. "Mr. Ashford, I need to tell you something important. It's about Mrs. Ashford and someone named Thomas." Victor's expression grew serious as Emma recounted everything she had overheard. She watched his face change from disbelief to anger, to something that looked almost like relief. "You're certain it was Diana's voice?" he asked quietly. "Yes, sir, I've worked here for 5 years. I know her voice." Emma's own voice was steady now that the truth was out. Victor was silent for a long moment, staring out at the storm-battered garden. Finally, he spoke. Thomas Kane. He's Diana's personal trainer. I wondered why she suddenly became so interested in fitness. His laugh was bitter. Emma, you've taken an enormous risk telling me this. Diana is not someone who forgives or forgets. I couldn't let them hurt you, sir. You've been kind to me and my family. Victor nodded slowly. I won't forget this, Emma. I promise you that. The gift. The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of a car engine idling outside her small apartment building. She peered through the thin curtains and gasped. A gleaming silver Mercedes sat in the parking lot, looking impossibly out of place among the rusted sedans and beat-up trucks. A man in an expensive suit stood beside the car, holding an envelope. When Emma opened her door, he handed it to her with a slight bow. Miss Carter, from Mr. Ashford. Inside the envelope was a set of keys and a deed to a beautiful townhouse in the city's historic district. Emma's legs nearly gave out as she read the document. The house was worth more than she could earn in 10 lifetimes of housekeeping. There was also a note in Victor's precise handwriting. Emma, your courage deserves a reward. This is not charity, but justice. The truth has value, and you've given me the most precious gift of all, my life. The car and house are yours, free and clear. But I must warn you, danger may follow. Diana will realize what happened eventually. New beginnings. The townhouse was like something from a fairy tale. 3 stories of brick and ivy, with tall windows that let in streams of golden sunlight. Emma walked through the rooms in a daze, running her fingers along polished wood and marble surfaces. She had moved from a cramped studio apartment to a mansion overnight. But even as she marveled at her new surroundings, Victor's warning echoed in her mind. Diana would want revenge, and a woman willing to murder her husband wouldn't hesitate to eliminate a troublesome housekeeper. That evening, as Emma unpacked her few belongings in the master bedroom, her phone rang. Victor's voice was tense. Emma, I need you to be very careful. I've hired private security for you, but Diana is cunning. She's already asking questions about staff changes and why you left so suddenly. What did you tell her? That you had a family emergency. But she's suspicious. I've also contacted Detective Rodriguez at the police department. He's an old friend, and he'll be keeping an eye on both of us. Emma looked out at the quiet street below, where a black sedan sat under a streetlight. Her new protection, she realized. Her life had changed completely in the span of 24 hours. The hunt begins. 3 days passed peacefully. Emma explored her new neighborhood, marveling at the coffee shops and bookstores within walking distance. She even treated herself to new clothes, something she hadn't been able to afford in years. But the peace was shattered when she returned home from shopping to find her front door slightly ajar. Her blood turned to ice. She had locked it carefully before leaving. Emma backed away from the house, pulling out her phone to call the security number Victor had given her. Before she could dial, a familiar voice stopped her cold. Hello, Emma. Diana. Ashford stepped out from behind a flowering bush looking as elegant as ever in a designer coat and boots. But her smile was sharp as a blade, and her eyes held no warmth. Surprised to see me? You shouldn't be. Did you really think you could destroy my life and just disappear into your little fairy tale? Diana's voice was silk wrapped around steel. Emma's hand tightened on her phone. I don't know what you mean. Oh, please. Victor's sudden change of travel plans, your mysterious departure, this lovely new house. You heard something you shouldn't have, didn't you? Diana stepped closer, and Emma could smell her expensive perfume. Thomas and I had such beautiful plans. Years of preparation, and you ruined everything with your eavesdropping. The truth unveiled. Victor knows about Thomas. Emma said, finding her courage. He knows about your plan to kill him. Diana's laugh was like breaking glass. Victor thinks he's so clever, but he has no idea how deep this goes. Thomas isn't just my lover, Emma. He's my business partner. We've been planning this for 3 years, and we have backup plans for our backup plans. Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. Without looking away from Diana, she glanced at the screen. It was from Victor. Emma, get out now. Diana has been planning something bigger. My lawyers found evidence she's been embezzling from my company for years. She needs me dead to cover her tracks. You see, Emma, Victor's death was never just about love or money. It was about survival. And now you've forced me to accelerate my timeline. Diana reached into her purse, and Emma saw the glint of metal. But before Diana could draw whatever weapon she was reaching for, the black sedan Emma had noticed earlier roared to life. Detective Rodriguez and 2 uniformed officers emerged from the car, guns drawn. Diana Ashford, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and embezzlement, Rodriguez called out. Diana's composure finally cracked. Her perfect mask slipped, revealing the desperate, dangerous woman beneath. You can't prove anything. It's her word against mine. Actually, we can, Rodriguez said, approaching carefully. Your boyfriend Thomas was wearing a wire when he met. With you this afternoon. We have everything on tape. Justice served. As Diana was led away in handcuffs, still screaming threats and denials, Emma felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The danger was over, but she knew her life would never be the same. Victor arrived as the police cars were leaving, his face grim but relieved. Are you all right? He asked Emma. I think so. Is it really over? Thomas rolled over on Diana the moment we offered him a deal. It turns out she's been stealing from my companies for years, planning to disappear once I was dead. She would have gotten away with it too, if not for your courage. Emma looked at her beautiful new house, then back at Victor. I don't know how to thank you for all this. You saved my life, Emma. This is the least I could do. Victor's expression grew serious. But I have one more gift for you if you'll accept it. He handed her a business card. My foundation needs a director of charitable giving, someone with integrity, someone who understands what it means to struggle. The salary is generous, and you'd be helping people who need it most. Emma stared at the card, overwhelmed. From housekeeper to murder witness to foundation director in less than a week. It felt like a dream. I don't have experience with that kind of work. You have. Something more important than experience, Emma. You have character, and that's rarer than you might think in my world. As Victor drove away, Emma stood in front of her new home, holding the business card that represented her new future. The storm had passed, both literally and figuratively. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time in her adult life. Emma Carter felt truly free. The warning she had given to a billionaire about his wife had changed everything. Sometimes, she thought, doing the right thing really did lead to the right rewards. Emma's new office overlooked the city's financial district, a far cry from the mansion's servant quarters where her journey began. As director of the Ashford Foundation, she had helped fund 3 homeless shelters, 2 scholarship programs, and a medical clinic in her old neighborhood. The irony wasn't lost on her that Diana's stolen money was now helping the very people she had looked down upon. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Emma reviewed grant applications. Her assistant, a bright young woman named Rebecca, knocked on the door. Emma, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your sister. Emma's blood froze. She hadn't seen Julie in over 2 years, not since their mother's funeral. Julie had always been the wild one, the one who chose drugs and bad men over family responsibility. What could she possibly want now? Julie Carter looked older than her 25 years as she entered Emma's office. Her blonde hair was stringy, her clothes wrinkled, and there were dark circles under her once bright blue eyes. But her smile was the same manipulative curve that Emma remembered. Well, well. Look at my big sister. All important now. Julie's voice carried a familiar mocking tone. Nice office, Emma. I heard you hit the jackpot. Unwelcome visitor. Emma gestured. To the chair across from her desk, her guard immediately up. Julie? What are you doing here? How did you even find me? It wasn't hard. Your story made the local news when Diana Ashford went to trial. Heroic housekeeper saves billionaire's life. Very touching. Julie examined her chipped nail polish with exaggerated interest. I was proud of you, sis. Really. But then I got to thinking, about what? About how unfair it all is. You get the fancy house, the important job, the new car, and here I am, struggling to pay rent on a studio apartment that smells like cat piss. Julie's voice turned wheedling. I thought maybe you could help out your little sister. You know, share the wealth. Emma had been expecting this conversation for months. Julie, I've offered to help you before. I paid for 3 different rehab programs. You left all of them. This is different. I'm clean now, Emma, I swear. I just need a little help getting back on my feet. Maybe 20,000? It's nothing. To you now. The old Emma might have given in, might have written the check just to make Julie go away. But the past 6 months had taught her something about boundaries and self-respect. No, Julie, I won't give you money to waste on drugs or whatever scheme you're involved in now. Julie's mask slipped, revealing the anger beneath. You always thought you were better than me, didn't you? Saint Emma, taking care of everyone. Well, guess what? I know something about your precious billionaire that might interest a lot of people. Dangerous knowledge. Emma's heart began to race, but she kept her voice steady. What are you talking about? I've been doing some research since your little fairy tale made the news. Victor Ashford isn't the saint the media makes him out to be. Julie pulled out her phone and scrolled through several photos. Did you know he was married before? His first wife died in a car accident 7 years ago. Very convenient considering she was about to divorce him and take half his fortune. That's ridiculous, Julie. Victor isn't a murderer. Maybe not, but there were rumors. Questions that were never answered. And now, with Diana's case making headlines, some reporters are starting to ask those questions again. Julie's smile was vicious. I wonder what they'd pay for an exclusive interview with the housekeeper who saved him, especially if that housekeeper had concerns about her hero's past. Emma stood up, her hands clenched into fists. Get out of my office. Now. Or what? You'll call security? Julie laughed. I'm your sister, Emma. This is just a family discussion. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Help me out and I'll keep my mouth shut about Victor's suspicious history. Refuse. And I'll make sure every tabloid in the country knows that the heroic housekeeper has serious doubts about the man she saved. The investigation. After Julie left, Emma couldn't concentrate on work. Her sister's words echoed in her mind, poisoning her thoughts about Victor. She knew Julie was a liar and a manipulator, but what if there was truth in her accusations? That evening, Emma found herself researching Victor's first wife online. Catherine Ashford had been a beautiful woman, a former teacher who married Victor, when his company was just starting to take off. The news reports about her death were sparse. A single car accident on a rainy night. No witnesses, no other vehicles involved. Emma was so absorbed in her research that she didn't hear her doorbell ring until it chimed for the 3rd time. She opened the door to find Detective Rodriguez standing, on her porch, his expression grim. Emma, we need to talk. Can I come in? She led him to her living room, noting how his eyes swept the space professionally. Is this about Diana? I thought her case was closed. It is. She's serving 25 to life. But something's come up and I need to ask you some questions. Rodriguez pulled out a small notebook. Has anyone contacted you recently about Victor Ashford? Anyone asking questions about his past? Emma's heart sank. My sister was here today. She was making some wild accusations about Victor's first wife. What kind of accusations? Emma repeated Julie's words, watching Rodriguez's expression grow increasingly troubled. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Emma, I'm going to tell you something in confidence, and I need you to promise me you won't repeat it to anyone. Not even Victor. She nodded, though dread was building in her stomach. We've been getting anonymous tips about Catherine Ashford's death. Someone's been sending us information suggesting it wasn't an accident. Photos, documents, witness statements that were never filed. At first, we thought it was just a crank trying to cash in on the Diana Ashford publicity. But some of the evidence is compelling. The truth about Catherine Rodriguez opened his briefcase and pulled out a manila folder. Catherine Ashford was planning to leave Victor. She'd already hired a divorce attorney and was threatening to expose some questionable business practices. The night she died, she was driving to her lawyer's house with a box of documents. What kind of documents? Financial records, evidence of tax evasion, possibly money laundering. The kind of thing that could have destroyed Victor's business and sent him to prison. Rodriguez handed Emma a photograph. This was taken by a traffic camera about a mile from where Catherine crashed. It shows another car following her. Emma studied the grainy image. It was hard to make out details, but there was definitely a dark sedan behind Catherine's white BMW. The car was registered to a private security company that Victor used at the time. The company went out of business a week after Catherine's death, and all their records were destroyed in a fire. Emma felt sick. You think Victor had his wife killed? I think someone did. Whether it was Victor himself or someone acting on his behalf, I don't know. But the evidence suggests Catherine Ashford didn't die in an accident. Confronting Victor, Emma didn't sleep that night. Every kindness Victor had shown her, every moment of apparent genuine concern, was now tainted with suspicion. Had she saved a murderer? Had her warning allowed him to kill Diana too, if his original plan with the medication hadn't worked? The next morning, she called Victor's office and arranged to meet him for lunch. They met at an upscale restaurant in the business district, the kind of place where conversations were muffled by thick carpets and heavy drapes. Victor looked genuinely pleased to see her. Emma, you look troubled. Is everything all right with the foundation work? Victor, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Emma kept her voice low but firm. Did you kill your first wife? The color drained from Victor's face. For a moment, he looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then, his expression hardened into something Emma had never seen before. Where is this coming from? Just answer the question. Did you have Catherine killed? Victor was quiet for so long that Emma began to think he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Catherine was going to destroy everything I'd worked for. Not just my business, but legitimate charities, employee, pension funds, thousands of jobs. She was going to burn it all down out of spite. Emma's heart sank. So you had her killed? I tried to reason with her. I offered her anything she wanted, more money than she could spend in a lifetime. But she wanted revenge more than she wanted wealth. Victor's hands were shaking slightly. I never meant for it to happen. I just wanted the documents back. The accident, that wasn't supposed to happen. The weight of truth. Emma stared at the man across from her, trying to reconcile the killer he was confessing to be with the kind employer who had shown her such generosity. How many people have you killed, Victor? Catherine was the only one. Diana. I would never have hurt Diana, despite what she planned to do to me. I'm not a monster, Emma. I'm just a man who made a terrible mistake. A mistake? You had your wife murdered, and I've regretted it every day since. Do you think I don't see her face in my dreams? Do you think the guilt doesn't eat at me? Victor leaned forward, his eyes desperate. Emma, you saved my life. You gave me a chance to make amends, to do better. The foundation, the charitable work we're doing, that's my penance." Emma stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Several other diners turned to look, but she didn't care. "Your penance? You think building homeless shelters makes up for murder? What are you going to do?" Victor's voice was quiet, resigned. "I'm going to tell Detective Rodriguez everything you just told me." Victor nodded slowly. "I know. I've been expecting this day for 7 years. In a way, I'm almost relieved." The arrest Emma walked straight from the restaurant to the police station. Rodriguez was waiting for her, as if he'd known she would come. "He confessed?" the detective asked after Emma recounted the conversation. "Everything. He admitted to having Catherine killed for the documents she was going to give her lawyer." Rodriguez picked up his phone. "I'll have him picked up within the hour." "Emma, you did the right thing. I know it wasn't easy." "It wasn't. He's been good to me, Detective. He gave me a new life. Built on blood money from his first wife's life insurance payout and the business he preserved by killing her. You can't let gratitude blind you to justice." Emma knew he was right, but that didn't make it hurt less. She had trusted Victor, believed in his redemption story. Learning that it was all built on lies felt like another betrayal. Julie's return. That evening, as Emma sat in her beautiful house trying to process the day's events, Julie appeared at her door again. This time, her sister looked different. Cleaner, more composed, but there was something calculating in her eyes that Emma didn't like. "I heard the news," Julie said, pushing past Emma into the foyer. "Victor Ashford arrested for his first wife's murder. I bet that was quite a shock for his favorite charity worker." "How did you know so quickly?" "I have my sources. The question is, what happens now? Your job, this house, all those lovely perks, they all came from a murderer's guilt money." Julie's smile was sharp. "Kinda poetic, isn't it?" Emma studied her sister's face, noting the subtle differences from their meeting the day before. The desperation was gone, replaced by a cold confidence that made Emma's skin crawl. "Julie, how did you really find out about Catherine Ashford's death? You said you did research, but those photos Rodriguez showed me weren't available to the public." Julie's smile faltered for just a moment. "I told you. I have my sources." "What sources? You've been a drug addict for the past 5 years. You don't have connections to police files or private investigators." Emma felt a chill of realization. "Unless someone gave you that information. Someone who wanted Victor destroyed." The real, conspiracy Julie's mask finally slipped completely. "You always were too smart for your own good, Emma." "Who are you working for?" "Someone who has a very good reason to want Victor Ashford destroyed. Someone who's been planning this for a long time and just needed the right person to pull the trigger." Julie pulled out her phone and made a call. "She knows. Yes, I'm sure. What do you want me to do?" Emma backed toward the kitchen, where she'd left her purse with her phone, but Julie was faster, blocking her path. "I'm sorry, sis. I really am. But some people pay better than others, and I have debts that need settling." The front door opened, and a figure Emma recognized stepped into her foyer. Thomas Kane, Diana's former lover and co-conspirator, looked very different from his mugshot. Gone was the slick businessman appearance. Now he looked dangerous, desperate, and very angry. "Hello, Emma. We have some unfinished business to discuss." The final revelation. "You're supposed to be in prison," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Supposed to be, yes. But I had some very good lawyers and some evidence that Diana was the mastermind behind everything. Turns out, she was planning to kill me too once Victor was dead. Self-defense plea worked wonders." Thomas smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I got out 3 weeks ago. And you've been planning revenge ever since." "Not revenge. Justice," Victor Ashford destroyed my life, sent the woman I loved to prison, and cost me everything I'd worked for. I wanted him to suffer the way I suffered. Emma looked between Thomas and her sister. So you hired Julie to manipulate me into investigating Victor's past. Your sister has many talents. She's very good at finding pressure points and exploiting them. We knew if anyone could get close enough to Victor to uncover his secrets, it would be his grateful little charity case. Julie at least had the grace to look ashamed. Emma, I never meant for it to go this far. I just needed the money, and Thomas promised it would be easy. Just plant some doubts, get you asking questions. But I exceeded expectations, Emma said bitterly. I actually got him to confess. Beautifully done, Thomas agreed. Victor's arrest is the first phase, but there's more work to be done. See, Victor's business empire is built on more than just Catherine's murder. There are other secrets, other crimes, and you're going to help me expose all of them. Fight or flight, Emma realized she was in serious danger. Thomas had already proven he was willing to commit murder for money, and now he had nothing left to lose. Julie, desperate and drug-addled, would do whatever he told her if the price was right. And if I refuse? Then your tragic suicide will be discovered tomorrow morning. A note explaining how you couldn't live with the guilt of working for a murderer, how you felt responsible for not seeing the signs sooner. Thomas pulled a gun from his jacket. Very believable considering the circumstances. Emma's mind raced. She needed to get out of the house, get to safety, warn the police. But Thomas was blocking the front door, and Julie was between her and the back exit. What exactly do you want me to do? Victor's home computer has files we need. Financial records, correspondence, evidence of other crimes. You still have access to the house through your foundation work. You're going to get those files for us. And then? Then you're going to disappear. New identity, new life, far away from here. We'll even pay for it. Consider it a severance package. Emma knew he was lying. There was no way Thomas would let her live with knowledge of his conspiracy. She was a loose end that would need to be tied up permanently. I need time to think about this. You have until tomorrow night. Get us those files or suffer the consequences. Thomas moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Emma? Don't even think about going to the police. We have insurance policies in place. Detective Rodriguez's daughter attends private school, doesn't she? It would be such a shame if something happened to her. After they left, Emma double-locked her doors and called the one person she thought might help her. But when she dialed Rodriguez's number, it went straight to voicemail. She tried again with the same result. Emma was truly alone, caught between a murderous conspiracy and the ruins of everything she thought she knew about justice and redemption. Tomorrow would bring a choice that could cost her everything, including her life. Emma spent the night pacing her living room, weighing her options. Every plan she considered seemed to lead to either her death or someone else's harm. Thomas's threat against Detective Rodriguez's daughter made it clear that the conspiracy reached further than she'd imagined. As dawn broke over the city, Emma made her decision. She would get the files Thomas wanted, but not to hand them over. Instead, she would use them as leverage to expose the entire plot and bring down everyone involved, including her own sister. The Ashford mansion felt different as Emma approached it the next morning. The grand estate that had once represented the pinnacle of wealth and sophistication now seemed like a mausoleum haunted by the ghosts of Victor's crimes. The new owners hadn't moved in yet, and the house stood empty except for a skeleton security crew. Emma used her foundation access card to enter through the service entrance, just as she had countless times as a housekeeper. The familiar hallways felt alien now, stripped of furniture and draped in dust covers. Her footsteps echoed in the silence as she made her way to Victor's study. Digital secrets. The computer was still there, forgotten in the chaos of Victor's arrest and the estate's transition. Emma powered it on, praying that the passwords hadn't been changed. Victor had always been creatures of habit, and she remembered him typing the same combination of numbers and letters every morning when she brought his coffee. The screen flickered to life, and Emma began her search. What she found was worse than she'd imagined. Victor's digital files revealed a pattern of corruption spanning decades: bribes to city officials, manipulation of zoning laws, intimidation of business rivals, and yes, evidence of Catherine's murder. But there was something else, something that made Emma's blood run cold. A folder labeled Insurance Policies contained detailed files on dozens of people: politicians, judges, police officers, journalists. Each file contained compromising information, photos, financial records. Victor had been blackmailing half, the city's power structure. Among the files, Emma found Detective Rodriguez's information, photos of him accepting an envelope of cash from a known criminal dated just 2 months ago. Her heart sank as she realized that even the one person she'd trusted to help her was compromised. The real enemy. Find anything interesting? Emma spun around to see Thomas Kane standing in the doorway. He wasn't alone. 2 large men flanked him, both carrying guns. "How did you get in here?" Emma asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Your sister gave us your entry code. Very cooperative, Julie is, when properly motivated." Thomas walked to the computer and glanced at the screen. "Ah, Victor's insurance files. Fascinating reading, isn't it? You already knew about these." "Of course I did. How do you think I got Rodriguez to look the other way when I was released? From prison? How do you think I convinced your sister to cooperate?" Thomas smiled coldly. Victor wasn't the only one who understood the value of leverage. Emma realized the scope of her mistake. She hadn't been fighting against a simple revenge plot. She'd stumbled into the middle of a massive criminal conspiracy that had been years in the making. "What do you really want, Thomas?" "Victor's empire. All of it. His businesses, his assets, his network of influence. With him gone and his reputation destroyed, his company's stock prices have crashed. Very convenient for someone looking to acquire them at a fraction of their value. You orchestrated everything. Diana's arrest, Victor's exposure, even my involvement." "Not everything. Diana's plan to kill Victor was real, and her theft was genuine. I simply guided events in a more profitable direction." Thomas gestured to his companions. "Take the computer. We have what we need." Julie's betrayal. As Thomas's men worked to disconnect the computer, Emma heard familiar footsteps in the hallway. Julie appeared in the doorway, but she looked different. Gone was the desperate drug addict from their previous encounters. Her hair was styled, her clothes expensive, her manner confident. "Hello, sister. I hope you found our little treasure. Hunt educational." "Who are you?" Emma whispered, the full magnitude of the deception finally hitting her. "Someone who's been planning this for a very long time. Did you really think it was a coincidence that you overheard Diana's murder plot? That you were working the night shift in exactly the right place at exactly the right time?" Julie's smile was cruel. "I made sure you were assigned to that section of the house. I made sure Diana would have her conversation where you could hear it." Emma felt sick. "You've been manipulating me from the beginning." "For 3 years. Ever. Since I found out about Catherine Ashford's murder and realized what an opportunity it represented. Thomas needed someone on the inside. Someone Victor would trust. Who better than the heroic housekeeper who saved his life?" "But you're my sister. We grew up together." "We shared DNA and a childhood, Emma. That doesn't make us family." Julie's voice turned cold. "You always thought you were better than me, didn't you? Saint Emma, sacrificing for everyone else. Well, guess who's been making 6 figures while you were scrubbing toilets?" The final confrontation. Thomas checked his watch. "Touching as this family reunion is, we have a schedule to keep. Emma, you've served your purpose. Your tragic suicide will be the final nail in Victor's coffin, the grieving housekeeper overcome with guilt for working for a murderer." Emma backed toward the window, her mind racing. She had one advantage they didn't know about. Before leaving her house that morning, she had activated a recording app on her phone and slipped it into her jacket pocket. Everything Thomas and Julie had said was being recorded. "You won't get away with this. People will ask questions." "What people? You have no friends, no family who care about you. Rodriguez is compromised, Victor is in prison, and everyone else thinks you're just a lucky servant who got in over her head." Thomas nodded to his men. "Make it look convincing. A fall from the second-story window should do it." But Emma had spent 5 years learning every inch of this house. As the men moved toward her, she grabbed a heavy crystal paperweight from Victor's desk and hurled it at the window behind her. The glass shattered, and she dove through the opening. The escape Emma hit the rose bushes below the window hard, thorns tearing at her clothes and skin, but adrenaline carried her forward as she rolled to her feet and ran toward the garden maze. Behind her, she could hear Thomas shouting orders and the heavy footsteps of his men pursuing her. The maze had always been her refuge during her years as a housekeeper. She knew every turn, every dead end, every hidden passage. More importantly, she knew where the gardener kept his cell phone booster for the security system. Emma reached the center of the maze and pulled out her phone. The recording was still running, and she had over an hour of incriminating evidence. She quickly uploaded the file to a cloud storage account and sent copies to 3 email addresses: a journalist she'd met through the foundation, the FBI's tip line, and a lawyer she'd worked with on charity cases. The sound of approaching footsteps made her look up. Thomas appeared at the entrance to the maze's center, his gun drawn. Very resourceful, Emma, but ultimately pointless. Even if you've sent that recording somewhere, who's going to believe it? A desperate woman facing financial ruin, making wild accusations against successful business people? The FBI might be interested in your money laundering operations. And I'm sure the IRS would love to audit your offshore accounts. Emma held up her phone. "I found more than just Victor's files on that computer. I found your files, too." For the first time, Thomas looked genuinely worried. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Cayman Islands Bank. Account number 847291536. $15 million. Dollars deposited in the last 6 months? Want me to keep going? The cavalry arrives. The sound of sirens in the distance made Thomas's expression turn desperate. Emma smiled grimly. "I also sent a message to the security company that monitors this property. Told them there were intruders with guns. They're legally required to call the police." Thomas raised his gun, but before he could fire, Detective Rodriguez appeared behind him, his own weapon drawn. "Drop it, Kane. It's over." Emma stared in shock. "Detective? But the files, I saw evidence that you were compromised." "I was. Victor had photos of me taking money from a drug dealer 3 years ago. What he didn't know was that it was part of an undercover operation approved by my captain. The cash was marked bills used to trace a money laundering ring." Rodriguez kept his gun trained on Thomas. "When I heard about your sister's involvement and Kane's early release, I started putting the pieces together." Julie appeared at the maze entrance, her hands raised. "I want to make a deal. I'll testify against Thomas in exchange for immunity." "Too late for that," Rodriguez said grimly. "You're all going down for conspiracy, extortion, and attempted murder." Justice served. The trial of Thomas Kane and Julie Carter made headlines for weeks. Emma's recordings provided prosecutors with overwhelming evidence of the conspiracy that had destroyed Victor's life and nearly cost Emma hers. Thomas was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Julie received 25 years for her role in the plot. Victor's conviction for Catherine's murder stood, but the revelation of Thomas's manipulation campaign led to a reduced sentence. He would serve 15 years instead of life, with the possibility of parole in 10. Emma found herself in an impossible position. The foundation she had grown to love was built on blood money. The house she lived in had been purchased with the proceeds of murder. Everything she had gained in the past year was tainted. New beginnings, standing in her beautiful townhouse for the last time, Emma made peace with her decision. She had donated the property to a homeless shelter and was using her savings to rent a small apartment across town. The foundation job was gone, but she had been offered a position with a legitimate charity that helped crime victims rebuild their lives. Detective Rodriguez knocked on her door as she finished packing. "Any regrets?" he asked. "About turning down blood money? No. About trusting the wrong people? Maybe. But I learned something important through all this." "What's that?" "That doing the right thing isn't always rewarded, and sometimes the people you save aren't worth saving. But that doesn't mean you stop trying to do what's right." Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "For what it's worth, Emma, you're one of the most honorable people I've ever met. Not many would walk away from wealth and comfort for the sake of their conscience. The real reward." 6 months later, Emma sat in her modest apartment, grading essays from the night school classes she had started teaching. The work didn't pay much, but it was honest and fulfilling. She was helping people like herself, people who had been knocked down by life but were determined to get back up. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find a young woman about her own age, well-dressed but with kind eyes. "Ms. Carter? My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm Catherine Ashford's sister." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry I worked for the man who killed her. That's actually why I'm here. When I heard about your testimony, about how you gave up everything to see justice done, I wanted to thank you. Catherine would have liked you, I think. She always said the world needed more people willing to stand up for what's right, regardless of personal cost." Sarah handed Emma an envelope. "This is a scholarship fund Catherine set up before she died. She wanted to help people get education and job training. The fund has been tied up in legal battles for years, but with Victor's conviction, it's finally been released. We'd like you to administer it." Emma opened the envelope and gasped. The fund was worth over $2 million, enough to help hundreds of people change their lives through education and training. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." Catherine believed in second chances, in the power of ordinary people to do extraordinary things. You've proven that belief was justified. Full circle. 2 years later, Emma stood before a class of 30 students, all of them working to rebuild their lives after various setbacks. Former addicts, ex-convicts, domestic violence survivors, people who had been written off by society but refused to give up on themselves. "The most important lesson I can teach you," she told them, "is that your past doesn't define your future, but your choices do. Every day you have the power to choose who you want to be and what kind of impact you want to have on the world." After class, Emma walked to the small memorial garden she had created behind the community center. A simple stone bench sat beneath a flowering tree, with a brass plaque that read, "In memory of Catherine Ashford, who believed in justice and second chances." Emma sat on the bench and thought about the journey that had brought her here. She had warned a billionaire about his wife's murder plot and received a luxury car the next morning. But that was just the beginning of a story that had taught her the difference between reward and justice, between gratitude and manipulation, between doing what's easy and doing what's right. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Detective Rodriguez. "Saw the news story about your community center. Catherine would be proud. Victor would be too, for what it's worth. People can change, Emma. You've proven that." Emma smiled and looked up at the evening sky. The stars were just becoming visible, and she made a wish on the first one she saw. Not for wealth or comfort or recognition, but for the strength to keep doing what was right, no matter what rewards or punishments might follow. The housekeeper's warning had changed everything, but the real transformation had come from learning that the most valuable rewards couldn't be bought, sold, or stolen. They had to be earned, through courage, integrity, and the willingness to sacrifice for something greater than yourself. As Emma walked home to her small apartment, she reflected on how her life had come full circle. She had started as a servant in a mansion and ended up as a teacher in a community center. She had gained and lost a fortune, trusted and been betrayed, saved a life, and exposed a murder. Through it all, she had learned that the most important warning she could give wasn't about murder plots or criminal conspiracies. It was about the danger of compromising your values for comfort, of accepting gifts that came with invisible strings, of believing that ends could justify means. The luxury car was long gone, sold to fund the community center. But the real luxury, Emma had discovered, was the ability to look at herself in the mirror each morning and know that she had chosen conscience over comfort, truth over convenience, justice over reward. And that she knew was worth more than all the billionaires, gifts in the world.